Mikel Arteta, Fabrizio Ravanelli, Henrik Larsson, George Best. These are just a few of the world-class footballers to make the trip north to sunny Scotland. But what about the ones that fell through? The deals that didn't quite cross the finishing line? Maybe due to Brexit? Or maybe due to our club's dodgy emailing system? We're looking at you, Dundee. I've got a list of 10, some more shocking than others, with a few honourable mentions. Stick around for the story behind number 10, you are not going to want to miss it. Starting with the most recent almost signing on our list, we have Finnish international Roman Eremenko, brother of ex-Kilmarnock superstar Aleksi Eremenko. He was absolutely robbed of Player of the Year in 2011 by the way. Looking at Emilio Azagiri, really? The former £30 million midfielder Roman Eremenko was moments away from joining relegation-threatened St Johnstone in January this year. At 37 years of age, Eremenko would have brought a ton of experience to the Perth Saints midfield, having represented Finland 73 times and played for top clubs such as Rubin Kazan, CSKA Moscow and Dynamo Kiev. Manager Simo Valakari, also Finnish, was desperate to add a playmaker to his team, but the move hit a stumbling block when SFA rejected Roman's work permit. The decision was likely influenced by the veteran midfielder's age, as the very same panel agreed on allowing them to sign 25-year-old Jonathan Svedberg the same day. This outcome put a dent in St Johnstone's chances of survival, and the Perth club were relegated after 16 consecutive seasons in top flight. Following the setback, Eremenko continued his career in Finland with top division side IF Neston, where he's still playing. Next we have one of the world's best ever players, who almost went on loan to Rangers in 2004. No, we're not talking about Messi, although they did inquire about him at the same time. After essentially being told to f*** off when asking to take Lionel to Glasgow, Barca were a bit more open to Iniesta making a trip north. Manager Alex McLeish was desperate to replace outgoing midfielder Baye Ferguson, the like-for-like replacement, and the 18-year-old Spaniard seemed like the perfect fit. McLeish's assistant at the time, Jan Voeters, was pretty close to Barcelona assistant Henk ten Kate, so was tasked with being a middleman to try and push the deal through. Sadly for Rangers, Barcelona saw Andres as too promising to loan out, and instead promoted him to the first team. Iniesta later reflected that though he heard there was some talk of a move to Rangers, he never seriously considered it. He was convinced he'd succeed at Barcelona, and even sub-appearances at the Nou Camp were more appealing than playing elsewhere, particularly in Govan. I don't blame him, that place is a shithole. Iniesta went on to become one of the greatest midfielders of his generation, winning numerous La Ligas and Champions Leagues, as well as back-to-back Euros and a World Cup with his country. Staying in Glasgow we have world-class striker Didier Drogba's almost moved to Celtic in the summer of 2002. The discussion came about when Celtic player Momo Silla, who the club signed 1 year prior, was approached by former Le Mans teammate Didier about a move to Parkhead. At the time, Celtic's forward line was pretty stacked, with players like Henrik Larsson, Chris Sutton and John Hartson. Believe it or not, Momo told his good friend Drogba that he wouldn't be good enough to break into the team. Some friend he is. To be fair, at that point in his career, Silla was probably right. As we all know, Drogba went on to become one of the most feared strikers in world football, but as a relatively unknown 24-year-old, sitting on the Celtic bench might have put a stall to his career. As a result, Didier opted to stay in France with the Green Gomp, scoring 21 goals that season, before joining Marseille in June of 2003, where he done even better, scoring 32 times in 55 appearances. This earned the Ivorian striker a move to Chelsea, and the rest, as they say, is history. Next up we have an audacious bid from Dundee for world-class midfielder Edgar Davids. Yes, you heard that right. In 2003, the Dens Park side fancied themselves a go at being the top dogs in Scottish football, much like their city rivals did in the 80s. The big difference however is that while Dundee United managed it through tactical mastery under the shrewd management of Jim McLean, Dundee tried to buy their way there, bankrolled by controversial director Giovanni Di Stefano. Having already signed Fabrizio Ravanelli and Craig Burley that summer, they then turned their sights to the world's best four-eyed footballer, Edgar Davids, who was apparently earning as much as £90,000 a week at Juventus. Dundee's then manager Jim Duffy was asked to fly to Turin to convince him to come to Dundee, but later admitted in an interview his thoughts on the proposal. He's at Juventus in Serie A, and you want me to ask him to come to Dundee? We play Brecon City in the Forfarshire Cup at Glebe Park next Tuesday with a big hedge. Aye, that'll really attract him over. Fast forward 2 months and Edgar Davids was playing on loan at Barcelona, while Dundee had just entered administration. Surprise, surprise. Who knew spending money you don't have would end up blowing up in your face? Dundee director Di Stefano resigned in January 2004 and was later jailed for fraud in 2013. Next we have Aberdeen's potential move for world-class striker Jurgen Klinsmann. The year was 1996 and Aberdeen were alerted to the potential free signing of Klinsmann for the following season, a man who just won Euro 1996 with his country months prior. Shockingly, Aberdeen chairman Ian Donald rejected the opportunity, citing the forward's high wages as a major factor. The German would have been wanting upwards of £30,000 a week, totalling around £1.5 million over the course of a year, something a club like Aberdeen simply couldn't afford. The offer was revealed to Don's fans at the club's annual meeting in December of 1996 and was met with outrage by supporters who could only dream of seeing someone with the ability of Klinsmann at their club. Aberdeen legend Joe Harper criticised the decision as a major own goal, arguing that the Dons would have raked in cash from selling Klinsmann shirts and other souvenirs. It would have made Aberdeen the talk of Europe. Jurgen instead went to Sampdoria in Italy, before returning to Tottenham to help save them from relegation, scoring 9 goals in 15 league games. They could have used his goals last season. 17th place. What an embarrassment. Next up we have St Mirren's extremely bold attempt to sign Ronaldinho on loan in 2001. The Brazilian superstar had just conquered his homeland with an array of impressive displays, and after attracting attention from numerous European giants, decided to join PSG for €5 million. The deal wasn't scheduled to go through until the summer though, and the Brazilian season had already finished, so Ronaldinho was looking for a short-term loan move to familiarise himself with European football. Up stepped St Mirren. The Paisley side were in dire need of goals, sitting bottom of the Scottish Premiership with 7 games remaining. That's when manager Tom Hendry got a phone call from a South America-based St Mirren supporting agent of Ronaldinho, offering his client to the Scottish side. As ludicrous as this sounds, it was apparently very close to completion. The club even sorted out a flat and a car for Dino, desperate to push a deal through before deadline day. That's when hit the fan. The Brazil national team had a game 3 days prior, suffering a 1-0 defeat to Ecuador. In a moment of shock for the nation, the Brazilian FA shut down their headquarters, thus missing the 31st of March deadline. The deal was dead, as were St Mirren, who finished the season in 12th place, confirming relegation to the second tier. Ronaldinho went on to become one of the greatest footballers of his generation, lighting up the sport with his flicks and tricks. However, after a fake passport scandal, the Brazilian magician spent his 40th birthday behind bars in a prison in Paraguay. Probably still nicer than living in Paisley right enough. Sticking with St Mirren, we have the well-known story about the pursuit of Riyad Mahrez. This one's a belter, so strap yourselves in. The year was 2009, January 2009 to be exact, and a young 17-year-old Riyad Mahrez, at the time playing for amateur side Sarcelles in France, landed in Paisley for a trial with the buddies. The move was facilitated by representative Jake Duncan, who at the same time was working with music acts such as Paul Potts and JLS, which is bonkers enough to begin with. Where the real drama comes though was with how Mahrez left Paisley. After impressing on trial, scoring 7 goals in 4 friendly matches, Riyad's future was at the hands of St Mirren manager Gus McPherson. Over 2 months had passed and Mahrez still hadn't heard whether or not he was getting a contract, so one evening he nicked a bike from his hotel, cycled to the train station, fled to the airport and took a one-way flight back home to Paris, leaving his boots behind. The Algerian winger wasn't too complimentary of his time in Scotland. I'd had enough. It drove me crazy, Scotland. It was cold. It was abuse. It was snowing and everything. Oh, you poor thing. Couldn't handle a wee bit of snow. Mahrez went on to win the Premier League with Leicester and Man City, before signing for Al Ahly in 2023. I wonder what he thinks about the scorching heat in Saudi Arabia. Next we have a Scottish club who tried to sign Ballon d'Or winner Heresto Stoichkov, and it wasn't Rangers or Celtic. It was second tier side Airdrieonians. Not even the MAGA loving Airdrie we know today either. It was the side that died. I wonder how that happened. The deal was rumoured in August of 2000, after Airdrie were bought over by ex-Barcelona striker Steve Archibald. Heresto had only just joined American side Chicago Fire in March, but his contract was due to expire in December, and Archibald had put a few words in his ear about moving to Scotland. Although people mocked the idea, Steve was determined to prove him wrong. This is not an old pals act, or a publicity stunt. I believe Heresto could do a great job for the club. Unsurprisingly, the move broke down, likely due to financial reasons. Stoichkov stayed with Chicago Fire for a further 2 years, before finishing his career in the country's capital city with DC United. Airdrie, on the other hand, died. Speaking of dead clubs, next we have yet another audacious bid from Rangers. This time it was the Brazilian Ronaldo, and unlike an untested 18-year-old Iniesta, this was when the striker was at the top of his game. He just scored a whopping 47 goals from 49 appearances at Barcelona the season prior, and the fee was rumoured to be about £20 million, which amazingly would have been a world transfer record at the time. I think Ollie McBurney's going for that nowadays. Rangers were declared as one of 3 clubs interested in the Brazilian superstar, alongside Inter Milan and Lazio, and they even threw in some dodgy terms to try and persuade him. Apparently Ronaldo would have only had to play in the Champions League games, saving himself the trouble of moving to Govan, being paid thousands a week to only play about 10 games a season, while still getting to live in your house in Spain. Sounds like a dream come true to me. In the end, Inter Milan acted first, and triggered Ronaldo's release clause from Barcelona, with the Brazilian going on to win the Ballon d'Or twice. Oh, what could have been for Rangers. To be fair, the Glasgow Giants instead signed Marco Negri that summer, who scored an outstanding 36 goals in 42 games. Before we get to number 10, I'll share some honourable mentions that aren't quite exciting enough to warrant their own spot in the video, but still deserve a word. Number 1, Dennis Law to Hearts. Number 2, David Ginola to Hibs. Number 3, Del Piero to Celtic. Number 4, Josimar to Dundee United. And number 5, Sami Hyypiä to Motherwell. Last but not least, we have perhaps the most bonkers transfer rumour to a Scottish side in the history of football. Dutch legend Johan Cruyff to Dumbarton? No, you don't have to clean your ears, you heard that completely right. In December of 1980, the second-tier side attempted to sign one of football's greatest ever players. The Dutch midfielder was aged 33 at the time and had just played 2 seasons in USA with the LA Aztecs and Washington Diplomats. He was due to return to Washington again for the 1981 season, but the club surprisingly folded after failing to find new investors. This essentially made Cruyff a free agent, and Dumbarton manager Sean Fallon leaped at the chance to bring him to Boghead. Fallon travelled to Amsterdam to meet Johan face to face, and suggested quite a unique pay-per-play deal. Cruyff would fly in from Amsterdam on Fridays, play on Saturdays for Dumbarton, then return home that night, earning a share of the gate receipts. Sadly for Dumbarton, and Scottish football as a whole, the deal fell through. Johan decided instead to jet off to Spain and play for Levante. Play in inverted commas however, as he didn't do too much of that in his spell there, featuring 12 times in total. Cruyff went back to the Washington Diplomats afterwards as they were reformed under new ownership, but that didn't last very long. A couple years in his homeland followed, with boyhood club Ajax, before the midfielder retired at Feyenoord in 1984. Cruyff was asked about the Dumbarton link while golfing in Scotland back in 2012, and had this to say: "Was I tempted? Yes, of course I was. Playing in Britain was something I had always wanted to do, but I thought I was too old to go to Scotland, where the weather will be difficult. When you're old, your muscles get stiff, and moving to a cold country is asking for problems. We may not have had the pleasure of seeing someone as talented as Johan Cruyff grace our game, but this bold move from Dumbarton Football Club remains one of Scottish football's greatest ever what-if moments." That's it for this video. Thanks to anyone that made it this far. If you enjoyed, feel free to drop a like and leave a comment, maybe even subscribe. Click here to continue watching more of my content. Thank you.